What's the best place to stay in Paris? And what are some places you should avoid? I'm French, I live in Paris, and over the years, I've lived or worked in 10 different districts that are also called arrondissements. So you can say that I know Paris pretty well. And there's some areas that I love, and some others that I'm actively trying to avoid. So today we're gonna rank every arrondissement of Paris. I'll explain my ranking system as we go, but let's start with the first arrondissement. So the first arrondissement is pretty cool, there's so many things there. There's the Louvre, the Tuileries, Palais Royal, Pont des Arts, Place Vendôme. It's like what you think about when you're thinking of visiting Paris. Like almost everything is there. And it has a touristy but really beautiful vibe. It almost feels like the museum arrondissement. And in my opinion, I like going there for cultural activities and then leave and go back home. And you can totally stay there in Paris for your first visit because there's a lot of things to do there. But I don't really recommend it if you want to see the French culture. It's like staying at Disneyland Paris. I have to say that I do have a personal love for the Louvre. It's such a beautiful museum and there's so much to see there. But one thing I don't like about this arrondissement is that it's a bit too consumeristic. Like you have Rue de Rivoli, which is very beautiful, but has all the big name shopping brands. And there's also Châtelet-Léal, which is kind of a big mall, which has had some kind of revival over the past years, but I still am not a fan, even though I of course go to these two places where I need to buy something. Alright, so in terms of ranking, let's take a look at my tier list. So we're gonna go from my absolute favorite arrondissement. These are places I would like to live in, that I also recommend to my friends when they're coming to Paris. And then there's gonna be my least favorite in a category that I've named non merci, which means no thanks in French. But for the sake of this ranking, we're gonna say it with a sassy, disgusted way, like non merci. And there's so many in between, and we're gonna discover them together. But the first is gonna be ranked touristy. And that's like right in the middle because there's so many places in Paris that are great to visit, but I would never like to live there. And the first is one of them. Come visit, but then just leave and go somewhere more fun and more local. Alright, so now let's move to the second arrondissement. And a little fun fact about Paris is that Paris is built like a snail, which means that all the arrondissements spiral outwards of Paris. So we're gonna go all around the city. So in the second, we have the old stock exchange called Bourse. We have so many cute galleries like Passage des Panoramas, Galerie Vivienne, and we also have the Sentier neighborhood, which is kind of a hot spot for tech companies. And I used to work there, and there's so many great lunch spots, some cool after work places as well. And this neighborhood is also very central. So usually when I don't know where to meet with people, I usually meet in Sentier because it's kind of in the middle of everything and it's still nice. And there's also La Rue Montorgueil, which is a food shopping street, which is very nice, but a tiny bit overrated. Like none of the places are hidden gems, but they're still nice. I feel that kind of describes my feeling about this neighborhood. I feel it's nice, I like it, but it's a bit overrated. And that's exactly the name of my B tier in my tier list. I like these places, but they're not really hidden gems. And for this area, although I wouldn't like to live there, I would totally recommend staying there if you're someone who likes walking everywhere and you want to be in a central location. So now let's move to the third, and I've called it North Marais, which is not its official name because every arrondissement has an official name, but kind of no one uses it. And also in Paris, things vary a lot from streets to street. So even though there's 4 official neighborhoods in each arrondissement, it's really important to pay attention to the micro neighborhoods you're going to. Alright, so in the third, we have the very cute streets of North Marais. We have this very beautiful building called Les Archives Nationales. I seriously go there anytime I need a bit of peace and quiet in the neighborhood because it can get busy. And we have a cute market called Marché des Enfants Rouges. Also, there are so many shops in the area, and I'd say it's a bit of an unofficial shopping area if you like more independent brands. And I have to say that I really like this area. I often recommend it because you can walk everywhere. It's very beautiful. There's so many hidden gems. Like one of my favorites is the oldest house of Paris, the house of Nicolas Flamel. And when my friends come to visit, I kind of have an official walk that I take people to. And this walk is very heavy on the third and on the fourth because it's great for locals, but also for visitors. And by the way, you can find this walk and all my local recommendations in my maps. I have a Paris Secrets map with all the hidden gems I like, and then a Paris food map with all my favorite places to eat. So yeah, I often recommend this neighborhood because it's kind of the best of both worlds. Like there's a lot of things to do, but you still have a cool local life. But one downside is that everyone knows about it. Like it is so busy on weekends, and a lot of the cafes and restaurants that open there quickly make it to the guides. So anything that's a hidden gem will not stay a hidden gem for long there. And this is why I will rank this neighborhood in my B tier, which is nice but a bit overrated. I like hanging out there, but so do thousands of people beautiful as well. So right on the south of this neighborhood, we have the 4th, which is where Hôtel de Ville, the City Hall of Paris, and Notre Dame are. It includes the south of the Marais neighborhood, which is very beautiful, and also the islands of Paris, which, you know, you do have to visit them. They're very, very beautiful, very old. You also have the very beautiful Place des Vosges, and a bunch of really cute medieval streets. I know this area very well because Bobby's first apartment many years ago when he first moved to Paris was in that neighborhood. And you know, if it's your first time living in Paris, this is kind of the Parisian dream. You can visit a bunch of things, it's so beautiful, there's many cute little shops, but I have to tell you that it gets boring pretty fast because there are so many people. This area, and we're gonna talk a bit more about that in a bit, has also an issue with over-tourism. So if you want to stay there, definitely do it if you have the funds because it's a bit expensive, but try to choose a hotel and not a professional Airbnb because this is an area where locals also live and it has an issue with over-tourism. So the 4th is gonna be rated nice but a bit overrated, but I have to say that it's definitely touristy in some areas. Now let's move across the river to the 5th, and this is one of the oldest districts of Paris. We have a few remnants from Roman history, like Les Arènes de Lutèce, which is an old Roman arena, or Les Thermes de Cluny, which are old Roman baths. And this area has such a cool history. There's so many things to do there, so you can go see the Panthéon, you can go to Jardin des Plantes, there's La Sorbonne, which is one of the oldest universities, and there's definitely areas in this arrondissement that are over touristy and that I personally actively avoid. It seems to be a very fun area if you're a student. So if you're a student watching this and you have the opportunity to do a semester abroad in Paris, definitely do it. But on my side, I studied in another arrondissement, which I'll tell you about in a bit. So this neighborhood, I'm less of a fan. It feels sometimes a bit too touristy or a bit inauthentic, and that's why I'm gonna rank it in my C tier, which is touristy. And here, as we get on the left bank of Paris, you will see that I have a big bias against the left bank. This is kind of a big debate in Paris. There's people who prefer the left bank and some people who prefer the right bank. And I can safely say that I'm a right bank type of person. I love the right bank, but there's also some cool places on the left bank, like the 6th arrondissement. So here, this is a beloved arrondissement by many people. There's the Jardin du Luxembourg, which is so nice. Just go there, read a book and chill. And there's also a very famous neighborhood for a reason called Saint-Germain-des-Prés, which I've already made a video about. I really like this area as well. There's also many good restaurants there. It has kind of this chic, classical Paris feel, but it doesn't feel like a museum. Like there's a lot of stuff happening there. I will have to say though, that I'm gonna have to rank it in nice but a bit overrated. Like you should absolutely go there, but it is on the radar of every single tourist that comes to Paris. So far, a lot of places have kind of landed in the middle in my tier list, but I know we're approaching one of my least favorite neighborhoods of Paris, and also a few of my favorites. But before that, we have an arrondissement that everyone wants to visit, which is the 7th. This is where the Eiffel Tower is. You also have Musée d'Orsay, which is one of my favorite big museums. You also have Musée Rodin, which is so beautiful and peaceful, and Les Invalides, which is where we saw archery during the Olympic Games. And this is obviously a neighborhood you're gonna want to visit if you're coming to Paris. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. It is actually cool. I love going to the museum there. But I would personally never live there because it feels a bit boring for me. And I know there's a lot of people who love this neighborhood, but to me, and I'm gonna be a bit controversial, it has kind of a rich person wanting to be an intellectual type of vibe, which I'm not a fan of. So for that, I'm gonna have to put it in touristy. Alright, now it's time to make some enemies. I'm gonna talk about my hatred for the 8th arrondissement. And that is obviously very personal because I used to work there when I was working in investment banking. And let me tell you, it is one of my least favorite arrondissements. And I'm saying that from experience. Like, definitely go to the Miromesnil metro station if you want to overhear conversations about good stock picks or see what people working soul-sucking jobs look like in France while eating a 20 € salad bowl. But there's not only investment bankers and consultants there, there's also the Arc de Triomphe and the Champs-Élysées, which I'm also not a big fan of. There's a lot of big name brands which you can find at home. You don't need to go to Paris for that. And no one really lives there because a lot of the apartments have been bought up by foreign investors who keep them empty instead of renting them to people, which obviously I'm not into. So this is definitely going all the way down, which is non merci, said in a disgusted way. I'd have to say that there's one thing I like in the 8th. It's Parc Monceau. It's a little piece of paradise. It's very beautiful, very elegant. And if you peek through the branches, you can see the mansion the offices of Morgan Stanley are in, which I have to admit is very beautiful. Quick word on safety. The area around the Champs-Élysées is known to be a bit sketchy at night, and I want to tell you that Paris is pretty much safe everywhere if you apply basic common sense. Like, you know, in 99% of the cases, no one is gonna attack you or kidnap you. There's just like sketchy areas with a bit weird people, which make you feel like you're not in the right place. But overall, nothing to worry about if you're a bit street smart. Just apply basic common sense. If you're in a touristy area, just be mindful of your belongings. I've personally been coming back home at all hours of the day and night alone, either walking or biking, and I've always felt pretty safe. Alright, now let's move to the 9th, which is Opéra and Pigalle. And in the 9th is really where you can start seeing those micro neighborhoods, because, you know, things can really change from one street to another in Paris. So in the 9th we have the Opera, Palais Garnier, the Galerie Lafayette, Grand Boulevard, which are fine, but I'm not their biggest fan because I don't like shopping too much, and I like when there's fewer people in the streets. But then in the 9th we also have South Pigalle and Saint-Georges, which I'm a big fan. There's so many good restaurants there, which you can find on my Paris food map. It's definitely a fun, happening place, and you kind of have two different vibes in this neighborhood. It's like kind of busy in the south, really nice and local in the north. So specifically for the north of this neighborhood, I'm gonna put the 9th in I love it. And that's my first A tier. First of many, I hope. This is for places I would totally live in if I had the opportunity, and that are also very fun to visit. And by the way, if you're visiting Paris, your trip is probably gonna take you to a bunch of these arrondissements. And there's not really an arrondissement you should avoid, just a few that you should prioritize depending on what you like to do. Like, for example, if it's your first time coming here, you're probably gonna wanna see the Louvre. And this is gonna take you a lot of time because there's so much to see. Like, I've been coming there for years, and every time I discover something new. My tip here is to come prepared and just pick a few sections of stuff that you like, because otherwise you're gonna spend all your trip in the Louvre. Then if you do that, you'll have more time to check out local areas or do other activities. And to book activities, I really recommend Klook. Klook is a long-term partner of the channel, and I've been using them for a while to book my activities and hotels both in Paris and around the world. Their app is so easy to use, and they often have great deals on activities. If you want to try them, you can click the link in the description below or use my code LucileYTKlook for a discount. And another arrondissement I love is the 10th, and I've also lived there as a student. There's the beautiful Canal Saint-Martin, and this area is very fun. There's so many cafes, a lot of bars, really good bakeries. It's a little bit rough around the edges around train stations like Gare du Nord and Gare de l'Est, but you know, all areas around train stations are a bit rough around the edges, at least in Europe, and I really like it. And by the way, at this point you're probably wondering why I've lived everywhere in Paris. It's because I've moved back and forth from Paris a lot for work and studies over the past years, so every time I came back I changed apartments to get a better deal. But one place I found myself coming back to a lot was the 11th arrondissement. This is a very cool local area. There's Oberkampf, which is a really nice street for bars and for food shopping. There's the area around Voltaire. It feels super lively. There's a lot of hidden gems. My first ever apartment in Paris with my name on it was Rue Oberkampf. I went to college there, and it was one of the best decisions of my life because it really made me fall in love with the crazy atmosphere of living in a big city. Like, I had a cafe I was a regular at and people knew my name. I was obviously out every single night, and it is overall an amazing place to live in your 20s. Or, you know, if you're a bit older, if you're looking for a fun night out or a cool restaurant. It can be a bit too crazy though. Like, there's a lot of people who are not from that neighborhood who come there, you know, to have a crazy night. And the official tourism board of Paris describes it as the trendiest area of Paris, which, you know, means it's not anymore. It's a bit overrated, but I still love this area and it will forever be in my heart. So I'm gonna put it in I love it. Then we're getting to the 12th, and the 12th is a bit of a mystery to me. Like, there's a lot of things I like there, but I don't feel a really cohesive vibe. Like, there's Opéra Bastille, La Coulée Verte, which is Paris's equivalent of the High Line in New York. So basically you can run from the 12th to Bois de Vincennes, which is this giant park that's also in the 12th, which I really love. It's super beautiful. It's my favorite big park. There's also some cool markets like Le Marché d'Aligre, and there's also modern areas like Bercy Village. It feels underrated. It feels a bit too quiet though. I do have friends who live there and really love it, but strangely they don't often invite us to their area. So this is why I'm gonna put it in my B tier, which is underrated, but maybe for a reason. These are places I would love to see more. I would love to know more about them, but they're not really on the radar center of a lot of people. And another arrondissement I would love to know more about is the 13th. A lot of people have big preconceived ideas on the 13th because it's one of the arrondissements that was the most destroyed in the 70s. So the architecture is not very nice in a lot of places. It's a lot of big towers, but there's a lot of cool things there. First, it's the official Asian neighborhood of Paris, so there's a lot of great Asian restaurants. I love going there to eat Asian food, mostly Chinese and Vietnamese, but there's also other cultures there. Then there's a modern area around Bibliothèque François Mitterrand. And then also there's a very cute village-looking area called La Butte aux Cailles. It has all the tiny cobblestone streets, all the cute cafes. So overall, I'd say that it's a very misunderstood area, and I want to know more about it. I know a lot of people don't like it, so I'm gonna have to put it in underrated, but maybe for a reason. We don't know. We want to know more about it. We want to see that area succeed. So please go there and report back to me. Let's keep going with an area I've made a full video about, unfortunately titled The Most Hated Building of Paris. This is the 14th arrondissement. So this is where La Tour Montparnasse, this big ugly tower, is located. You can watch the video I made about it, but I've grown to like it. But I have to be honest, I almost never go to this area except to take the train to leave Paris to go to Toulouse, my hometown. So I'm gonna have to put it in my E tier. And this is the first time this tier is introduced, and I've called it bof. Bof means meh in French. So I consider it boring, but again, I'm open to changing my mind. And also sometimes boring is good. If you want to stay somewhere quiet, that might be the place for you. Now let's get into the 15th. And the 15th has consistently been rated one of the most boring neighborhoods of Paris by everyone I know. And to be honest, it's one of the neighborhoods I know the least, but I've started exploring it recently, and I found that it's actually pretty cute, especially around the commerce area, but also there was no one on the street on a Saturday afternoon. So is it boring? Maybe, but in any case, it feels very residential. There's cute parks. It's like kind of Paris without the craziness. Like it almost feels like a suburb of Paris. So again, it's not one of my favorite neighborhoods of Paris. I'm open to changing my mind, but I'll have to rate it a bof. One thing I have a strong opinion on is the next arrondissement, which is the 16th. On paper, the 16th has a lot going on for it. Like there's Trocadero, where you can have a beautiful view on the Eiffel Tower. There's Le Bois de Boulogne, the Louis Vuitton Foundation, which is a really nice museum with a cool architecture. I also had a friend who lived in the Village d'Auteuil, which is pretty cute. And also, if you like people watching, it's pretty fun because there's a lot of like rich people, gated communities, like La Villa de Montmorency, where a lot of billionaires live. And you know, it is a beautiful neighborhood, but I'm not a fan at all of the vibes. It is pretty boring. It is also very expensive. And also, most importantly, it is not fun there. Like the vibe I'm getting is like rich people who don't want to mingle with the masses. The funny anecdote I have about the 16th is that I once was at an acquaintance's house and we were having, you know, drinks on a Saturday afternoon around like 5 to 6 p.m. on the balcony of his parents' apartment. And we were a small group, we were pretty quiet, but obviously, you know, we were laughing and talking, but you know, no music, we were like not throwing a rager or anything. And after like an hour of being outside, there was an older guy from the balcony across the street who threatened to shoot us with his hunting rifle if we kept making noise. That's the only time in my life where someone has threatened to shoot me. And it was in one of the richest areas of Paris. Beautiful place, but the vibes are bad. So it's gonna be rated a non merci. Luckily, we're now moving to my favorite neighborhood, the 17th. This is where I live, and here it's really beautiful. It feels like a little village. It is very peaceful. Like there's this super cute square with the ducks I always keep meeting in my videos. They live there. There's a lot of restaurants, bars, and food shops. This area is really charming, and there's people of all ages living there. So there's families, older people, teenagers, people in their 20s. Like it feels like everyone is welcome there. The other neighborhoods of the 17th are 10, which is a bit more quiet, and then the area around La Fourche, which is more up and coming. So, you know, unsurprisingly, my neighborhood is going to be ranked my absolute fave. All right, so now let's get into an arrondissement that I really like, and that is if you do it well, because I think a lot of people do it wrong, and I'm going to explain what I mean. So the 18th is the arrondissement of Montmartre. I've made a full video about it. It's a very, very beautiful area of Paris. That's where the famous church, the Sacré-Cœur, is. It is definitely touristy, but we're going to get to that. There's also two of my my favorite areas in Paris, the area around the La Marque metro station and the area around Jules Geoffrin. Jules Geoffrin is super up and coming. There's so many good restaurants there. I swear at the moment I'm only going there for dinner because there's so many good places that are also hidden gems and really well priced. These areas is where you'll see the real Paris, where people live. It's also super chill, very, very local. And it has also like this artsy vibe. However, Montmartre, being very beautiful, has an issue with over-tourism. And here's how to do it well. So first, come either early in the morning or late at night. Seriously, there's no one there. It's really magical, super beautiful. Try to avoid the professional Airbnbs, you know, Airbnbs that are not someone's home, because a lot of these are illegal and they're taking housing away from real Parisians. And then whatever you do not participate in a giant group tour. The streets are too small there. There's already so many things to see, so you can do it on your own. It will be way better if you see things on your own. Try to really behave like a local and you'll have a great time over there. It is really one of my favorite areas of Paris, but I feel sometimes people do it wrong. But you know, even with that in mind, the 18th is still one of my favorite neighborhoods of Paris, so I'm gonna put it in absolute faves. Now the 19th. The 19th is a very underrated area of Paris. There's Les Buttes-Chaumont, which is one of my favorite parks, which I've talked about in this video. There's Canal de l'Ourcq, which is the north of Canal Saint-Martin. It is such a nice walk. There's also La Villette, which is a giant park around it. It's just a very relaxed area. It's very chill. It's multicultural. There's some areas in this arrondissement that are a bit sketchy. I've talked about the area around Stalingrad, but I have friends who lived around there and they told me it's not that bad. But if you're visiting, I'd say avoid this area just in case. So this is one of the areas where I'm like, it seems nice, but I'd love to see more. And for that, I'm gonna put it in underrated, but maybe for a reason, and an area that's currently underrated, but that I feel is such a hidden gem and that you should absolutely go to if you want to see local life, is the 20th. So the 20th is a pretty big arrondissement, so there's a lot of things going on there. You probably know it for the famous cemetery called Père Lachaise. This is where Oscar Wilde and Jim Morrison are buried. So there's a lot of visitors and it is a nice cemetery. You know, if you're into that, I do like taking a walk there myself. But there's really so much more in this area. There's Belleville, which is a super cool multicultural area that I really love. There's Ménilmontant as well, which is the hill right below that. There's so many bars, cafes. It's a really happening area. I love also Saint-Blaise, which is a neighborhood I discovered recently. It feels very edgy and alternative, and I feel there's so much to discover in the 20th. It is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated areas of Paris. I like that it's a mixed neighborhood in terms of income and also origins. You have great food from different countries in that area, especially in Belleville. It's a bit of a Chinese neighborhood as well. You might sometimes see it in the unsafe areas, and I do have to disagree with that. It is also one of the areas where I'd live and I'd happily live again. So you know that the 20th is definitely gonna make it to my absolute faves. I'd absolutely live there if I had the opportunity. So yeah, that's my full ranking. So let me know what you think, if you agree or disagree with it, and also what's your favorite arrondissement of Paris. I hope you enjoyed my take on this video. It was inspired by one of my friends Theo old videos, and our rankings are very, very different. But there's also a lot of other YouTubers who have done similar videos with different rankings again, including me last year. And in this video, I went a bit deeper in the exact streets you should stay on and the ones you should avoid. And I recommend you go see it right after this. I'll see you there. Bye for now.